Hey friends, Kevin here from the There's No Business Like team. It's hard to believe it's already July, which means conference season is just around the corner. The NBL team is trying to make it to more conferences this year, so hopefully you will see us at WA in August, MAX in September, and APAP in January. No guarantees yet, but we are working on it. Since the season is upon us, we wanted to update our How to Conference episode with some input from Western Arts Alliance, Heartland Performing Arts, and the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, the organizations behind those conferences. You still have time to register for those conferences, and if you still have early bird pricing. If you are new to conferencing and have a question we didn't answer, reach out to us on our socials. We hope you enjoy this updated How to Conference episode.
Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Welcome back, everyone, to There's No Business Like. This week, we're going to spend some time talking about conferencing and how we approach them. But before we get started, I'm Kevin Maynard, and I am joined with my friends, Katie.
Hey, everyone. Katie Miller with the Midland Center for the Arts in Midland, Michigan.
Danielle.
Hi, it's Danielle from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
Brian.
Hey, Brian Zellmer from KU Presents.
And my friend Josh.
Josh Benson, rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
This week, we're going to talk about conferences, and we're going to focus on booking conferences. There are conferences for a lot of different things, but our perspective as presenters is booking conferences. And I think it's also valid that we should talk about the fact that we are going to approach this from a presenter's perspective. To get started, I want to talk about conferences. Like, what are they, and why do you all find value in them?
Kevin, I love conferences, and I have a list right here of 100 different reasons, but I'm just going to start with my top few. One, they're inspiring. Just being in the same place with people who have the same kind of general understanding as you, it's just a room full of people who get the things that you get. And there's usually a lot of professional development and speakers that really kind of give you that inspiration, and you get to see what other people that are sort of walking in your shoes are doing in their areas or their regions that are working. You get to find new ideas. You get to find new artists. There's so many things that are wonderful.
Yeah, building off of that, Danielle, I really think of conferences as the best way to become part of the wider performing arts community. So many, artists, presenters, agents come into the industry and they don't really have a lot of connections. They don't know who to go to. They're looking for mentorship, things like that. Conferences are an incredible way of finding those things, joining a community, like you said, becoming inspired, learning new things. But it is the fastest way to become really integrated into what it is we do and meet new people and build those relationships that we're always talking about on this podcast.
I couldn't agree more with what both Danielle and Katie said. Those are my top reasons of why I go to conferences. It's a great place to discover new artists and meet new agents and build your network professionally too, not just on a personal level.
And I agree with all of that. It's about building that network, actually getting some face-to-face time with people and talking about the things that we're all passionate about. Having a drink with somebody, going to the networking events and getting to meet the new people. And then building on that, because you'll see, whenever you go to the conferences, once you meet somebody, you're going to see them multiple times throughout your time at the conference. And you'll have that opportunity to touch base again and to build on that relationship just while you're there. And then that gives you the rest of the year for whenever you're, finalizing your booking and doing the business end of it, to have that relationship in place. And that's something that is so incredibly key.
Yeah, those are all fantastic points. The other thing I really enjoy about conferences is that you're in a room with like-minded individuals, with everybody who's working towards the same goal. So you get a lot of new ideas, a lot of inspiration, and you leave recharged and more focused on the impact that you can have in your own community. Why should our colleagues attend your conference?
Hello. My name is Jennifer Stewart. I'm the conference manager at Western Arts Alliance. I'm going to speak directly to your listeners, Kevin. I'm going to put my voice right into their little ears. Okay, listeners, you need to come to WA this year because this year's conference presents an exceptional opportunity for socializing. Now, hang with me for a second. What greater function does socializing serve? It expands your network, doesn't it? Right? So if you're feeling like your professional network needs to be refreshed, if you need to be meeting new people in the field, or maybe you've got a really solid professional base, you've got your established conference cronies, but maybe you want to expand it. You need to be meeting more people. Come to WA in San Diego. We're going to be on a resort campus this year that's going to feel like summer camp for performing arts professionals. You're going to leave your hotel room, past the sand volleyball court, past the fire pits, past the water slide, and on your way to go pick up your coffee and bagel that we will provide, you're going to just bump into fellow conference goers. And because the whole vibe at the hotel is very chill and friendly, there are just going to be so many places to meet and make connections, both socially and formally. It's just going to be a lot of fun.
My name is Tommy Hensel. I am president of the board of Heartland Performing Arts, which is the producer of the Midwest Arts Expo. Well, first of all, I would say if you came last year, it was a lot of fun. That's always a good thing. You get a lot of work done. But I think really what I would explain to people is it's a new conference, but it was put together by us for us. So it was agents, artists, managers, and presenters all getting together to create an expo. So we kind of know from history what worked, what didn't work, what we wanted, what we didn't want. So it has a different vibe, I think, than many of the other conferences because it was us creating something for ourselves.
My name is Krista Bradley. I'm Director of Programs and Resources at the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, or APAP for short. Well, APAP NYC is the largest convening of the presenting, booking, and touring industry globally. So it's the biggest conference. It has the most showcases. We have over 1,000 showcases that happen across the city. So it's a great conference to go see a lot of work and discover a good chunk of work. We also have over 3,000 attendees. So it's a great opportunity to network and discover your people, to connect with your people, discover colleagues. We have an exhibit hall of over 400. So a great way to actually learn and meet with artists and agents and managers. And we have about 20 to 25 PD professional development sessions. So it's a great way to learn about what are the key issues that are happening in the field and hear from some of the major leaders inside and outside our field to help you do your job better.
Hey, Kevin. So I know that you are attempting to host this episode.
Attempting.
But the thing is,
this is a coup.
The thing is that I cannot sit here without playing a game. It's literally a part of me. And I need to stop you. I need to stop your role right now because we're about to play a game. I'm sorry.
I would say, I'll allow it, but I don't think I really have an option here. So proceed.
Oh my gosh, 10 points to Kevin. He understands the game. All right. So first things first, this game is called Two Truths and a Lie. So how it's going to work is I'm going to go to each of you. You're going to tell me 3 statements that are either about something you've done at a conference or conference adjacent. And one of those statements will be a lie, meaning the other 2 are a truth. And I'm going to guess which one is the lie. To kick things off, I'm going to put the person who I love to put on the hot seat the most to go first. Kevin, your 3 statements, please, sir.
Left a conference early to run a Spartan race with a fellow presenter. I was read a children's story on the expo floor. The other one, I heard Lin-Manuel Miranda talk about Hamilton before it officially came out.
I know you're a runner. So while the first one seems like you're the only person who's probably had that experience, I'm going to say that one is true just because for some reason you run your body. Second one was read a book. Considering you learned how to use a fork at a conference, the fact that you were read a book at a conference, no, we won't do that. I'm not going to bully you that hard. I'm going to say that you have never heard Lin-Manuel Miranda speak ever.
I have no idea how you would have gotten to that conclusion.
All right, somebody who's better at lying. Josh, let's go.
You should save him for last because he's probably the best at lying out of between Katie and I left,
So I ran a Spartan race with a fellow colleague at a conference.
I wonder who that could be.
All right, well, this lie better be convincing.
Okay, I'm going to start that over. I have engaged in a pull-up competition at a conference. I have gotten trapped in an escape staircase, like a fire escape, emergency stairwell. And I had a ramen eating contest at a conference.
No, yeah. And so the thing about all of these things is they require somebody to have an overly large sense of confidence.
Ta-da!
So this is going to be tricky to figure out. So we've got eaten ramen, got stuck in stairs, and did pull-up contest. I think it's the ramen noodles because it's very hard to pack a lot of ramen noodles in your tummy. Final answer.
Danielle's right.
What? Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Danielle got a second one right. Okay, let's see. Brian, are you tricky?
I don't know if I'm going to be tricky. Josh is probably the king at that. But I'll try. So I literally stayed up all night and closed down faces and names. 2, I got lost alone in the Bowery till 6 a.m. wearing a business suit and wandering around empty streets. Or 3, got accosted by an agent who was not even registered in for the conference in the hotel.
I'm going to say 3 is true. And 2 is the lie.
2 is the lie, but it was 3 a.m., not 6 a.m.
All right, Katie, what you got? See, if anybody could get me, it's Katie.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so what is the truth and what's the lie, Danielle? All right, so number 1, I forgot my toothbrush. The front desk didn't have any, and I had to text Christine Cox at 3 a.m. to see if she had an extra one. I once got stuck in an elevator for an hour at a conference hotel by myself and was very lonely. Or Josh Benson is a terrible influence at conferences.
I think you got stuck in an elevator in a conference with people in it.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes.
Yeah.
Danielle is too good at this.
So we've talked about why we find conferences to be of value, but let's talk about preparing for a conference, because after all, conferences can be a lot of fun, but they are still work. And in order to successfully navigate those, there is some preparation involved. So we can talk about this in a few different ways, but let's talk about arranging travel. Does anyone in our group have any tips or tricks or things that they do to arrange their travel to make it easier for them?
For me, since the pandemic, I typically come in the day before just to make sure, if I'm flying, just to make sure I can get there. Because over the past couple of years, there have been a lot more delays and reschedules and cancellation of flights. And so that's my number one thing whenever I'm starting and booking my travel is I go a day early just to make sure that I can get there for the conference.
Josh, in that same vein, I always typically book the earliest flight I can and make sure there are options after my initial flight so that if I do get delayed or miss something or there's weather or something, then I have other opportunities to hop onto another flight to still try and get to my final destination.
And 2, just booking as far ahead as you possibly can because those prices jump fast.
Yeah, that most conferences have an early bird cutoff, and or they'll even have a block for their conference hotel rates that they get a special discount on, and they're limited, so people get them pretty quickly. So if you wait, a lot of those things get booked up, and then you're stuck, sometimes even having to go to another hotel because it's all full.
The other benefit of arriving a day early, at least I always tell myself, is that I will get at least one good night of sleep because there's not, showcases or conference events happening. Well, I think that's some great advice.
How does your conference engage first-time attendees?
Well, I will tell you, we used to have a new colleagues program that was associated with our conference, and that included matchmaking with mentors and mentees or conference buddies, if you will. And that service was paired with an in-person orientation on the first day of the conference, which, many other convenings do. However, we had received feedback more recently from both the new attendees as well as the mentors that the program at the end of the day really wasn't doing much to enhance the conference experience for anyone. So we're taking a pause this year on it. And our executive director, Joshua Heim, alongside with our membership coordinator, Machiavelli Gresham, in consultation with our member-led committees, are going to plan for how to reconsider the new colleagues program in future years so that it is really a more meaningful experience and not so stale. But I will just quickly add that we did provide online orientations this year for new exhibitors and another for just new attendees, on which we did receive positive feedback. So we think that that sort of pre-conference opportunity to engage virtually still works. And those recordings are made available, and we're continuing to send them out to people who have registered more recently.
Last year we were trying it out, but we're kind of tweaking the new colleague concept. So we do have the ability when you register for you to ask for a mentor if you're new to the industry, or to volunteer to be a mentor if you want to be one. So the very first day, on Monday of the week, we have a new colleague orientation session where everyone who is new is matched up with their mentors, and there's a whole presentation. And then we're really working to make sure that relationship stays active throughout the year, so it doesn't just stop at the end of the conference. It actually will continue to go on. So I feel like that piece is really great for a new attendee, whether you're an agent or an artist or a manager or a presenter. And then beyond that, I feel like all of us who are, I hate to call myself a veteran, I feel old when I say that, but those of us who are veteran in the industry, I think most of us are really there to answer any questions. I think we're all pretty approachable.
We love first-time attendees. So we have a couple of ways that we do this. We have a series that takes place starting this month in July called The Road to Conference. And it's a online multi-part pre-conference series that provides orientation sessions to share information and answer questions about attending, why you should attend, how you should prepare, what you should do if you're an exhibitor, should you do as a presenter, what should you do as a showcaser, as well as interviews with people who have been attending for a long time and those who were recently first-time attendees. So you can get a sense of how do other people plan for APAP, because there are many ways to APAP. We also have a mentoring program. It's on hold for now, but we have a wonderful director of membership, Sue Noseworthy, who is so fantastic in connecting first-time attendees and new members to the right people. So she is at the ready, waiting to give you advice and guidance. We have ways to APAP videos available for people to learn a little bit more about how people plan and prepare. We have on-site orientation sessions at conference. We also have a number of affinity groups that happen before and during conference based on your role in the field or your particularly identity. And so it's a great way to connect with your people and have a group of folks that you can go through conference with.
Let's talk about the big one, and that is, your conference schedule and setting meetings, because we know that as soon as you register for a conference, you are sometimes inundated with meeting requests and information about, showcasing and, all of these things. So how do you all navigate that to try to make sure that, you have enough time in your schedule to see the things you need to see, but also, enough time to not completely burn yourself out?
I register as an agent. No, I don't.
As the most type A person on this podcast, I'll start that. So I typically look at the conference schedule and I go into my Outlook calendar, which is what I use. And I put in all the PD sessions first that I want to attend and look at the showcase schedule. And I block out time for all the specifically or the specific showcases I want to make sure that I get a chance to see. And then I look at the expo hall hours and I go, okay. And then I put in time for those expo hall hours. And then I know exactly what time I have available to set meetings during. And typically I also try and block out like the happy hour, dinner hour time as well for meetings with agents or other presenter friends, or consortiums. Consortiums will host meetings during conferences as well. So I try and really be intentional with like blocking out my PD time first, and then those other elements to make sure that I'm prioritizing what's important to me, which frankly, I want to learn something first, and then, be selective in the meetings that I am taking. So that's how I prioritize my time.
Yeah, Katie, I do something similar. And I think what Kevin kind of alluded to earlier, like whenever you sign up as a presenter, you do start to get lots and lots of emails from different people. But to the best that I can, if somebody asks me for a meeting, I do try to click on their agency, see what they do. And if I feel like they saw that I checked youth and family and kind of have an idea of who I am rather than just mass emailing kind of everybody on the list, if I think that there's something that might fit on my calendar, I do try to make sure I'm making time to meet new people and especially to discover new artists. I definitely like to make sure that I have time on the calendar to make sure I can dig deep with some of the agents that I normally work with, just to see what kind of needs to be a real placeholder on my schedule. But I think it's important to make sure you're leaving time to either walk around and meet new people or to, be a good colleague and say yes to not all the meetings. I'm not going to advocate that. But I've been surprised, and I think it's easy to close yourself off to what you already know. But this is me telling you to just do a few extra clicks.
Scheduling in wander time and discovery time is incredibly important within your schedule. And because it's important, I always, whenever I get an email from someone that I don't know, I immediately go look through their roster. And it's important for me to not waste either of our time if everything they have is classical music, which is something that we don't do at this facility very often. And I will let them know that. I will respond to the request and just say, hey, I don't think it's good fit because we don't do these things, and give them a chance to either tell me, hey, I've got some other stuff that you should take a look at, or, hey, thanks for getting back to me. I appreciate it. Looking at things and figuring out what a good fit is or isn't for you to take a meeting is important to me.
I'll start with Kevin's question about email. I scroll through, I glance real quick at every email that comes in. And a lot of them are kind of like cookie cutter, like template type emails that aren't personal in any way, and I'll glance at it because if it's an artist or something that interests me for a possible thing that I'm looking for, then I'll take note of it. But typically I'm just quickly going through those and just making sure I look at them all. And then the personal ones that seem to be just like someone took the time to actually write me an email, and not just do a mass one, which I understand they don't have time to do that, most people. But if they took the time to do that, then I try to at least reply. When it comes to meetings, I've done both. I've overscheduled meetings. I've done no meetings. And it really depends, again, what works for you. But I've kind of found my sweet spot is I don't book meetings with agents that I know. And especially if I know their roster well enough that I can stand in the booth for them so they could take a break and do the pitches, then there's no need for us to have a meeting. Or if I already know I'm booking, like a lot of times I have what my shows are going to be before I even get to APAP, let's say. So I don't need to schedule a meeting and block out time that some other person that isn't sure can meet with them, on the conference floor. But instead, maybe I'll meet with them at happy hour or engage in another way that helps develop our professional relationship, but doesn't waste that time on the expo hall floor because I don't need to have that meeting with them there. I find wandering the floor works for me. And yes, there's certain agents that I need to see and speak with, and they're always super busy because they book tons of meetings, but I have not yet gone to a conference where I haven't been able to speak with them. I might have had to circle back, 20 times to find that opening, but I've always been able to do it.
Brian, that's some excellent advice there. I always try to build in that wander time. And I think everybody has talked about that. So for me, like the first hour that the expo hall is open and typically like the last day or so, I try to leave that open to give myself time to meet with people that maybe I didn't, connect with during the time to really, and then also kind of get the lay of the land for the expo hall.
Just on the note on like, once you have your schedule set, you have your meeting schedules, expo hall, whatever set, I always not only have it digitally, on my calendar, I always print out a copy, honestly, and I have it tucked in my bag because if your internet goes down, you lose your phone, it breaks, something like that. I always like to have a printed copy just so I can make sure that I'm staying on track and on target with my schedule.
Yes. And word of advice, put your calendar entries in the time zone that you will be in, because I have had that where I've put all of them in Central and then I've gone to, Eastern time and all of a sudden everything's messed up. So don't forget that. Yeah.
How does your conference encourage networking and collaboration?
There are a couple of sessions that we organize for the express purpose of helping to facilitate collaboration. One is a type of pitch session, and one is a highly curated, facilitating networking event. And both are all about sharing opportunities to partner with colleagues. So Pitch Now is a session that Josh, our executive director, came up with last year, and we're carrying it forward this year. The word now in the title is an acronym for new or outside of the box works. And so with this session, an artist or an agent is pitching, and they're looking for specifically a collaborator in one form or another. This session is about connecting potential creative producers or residency partners, investors, co-creators with one another. So you attend this session, you hear something that you want to learn more about and be involved with as a creative partner. And if it sounds interesting, then, you follow up with that agent or that producer, and together, and what was pitched as an exciting idea or a concept can become something real. So with that session, we're pairing people. The other really collaborative session that we do is called Ditch the Pitch, which is a participatory session. So everyone who attends this session is active. Everybody talks. And attendees sit in small groups around a table. And those groups it's a mixed group comprised of agents, artists, and presenters. And together they discuss ideas, challenges, or potential solutions around a commonly shared interest. So just a quick example, if you're interested in, launching a new outreach initiative to a very specific demographic, you come to this session, you meet with other presenters who are thinking about the same thing, and agents or artists who have something to offer in that area. So for anyone looking to partner or work together to create something, we strongly encourage participation in both of those two sessions. And this is getting into be a longer answer, but to encourage networking, I want to just say credit to our San Diego host committee who wanted to offer people plenty of opportunities to mingle and make new friends in San Diego. So we're hosting happy hours every night of the conference, particularly on the second and the third night, to send people on their way into what is shaping up to be a really strong independent showcase program. So there are points on the schedule where we've designated social time. We've actually named pool time on the conference schedule as an option. So leaning into the resort atmosphere and really encouraging people to get out and be social.
So one of the things that we were very clear about last year when we were first sitting down to figure out what do we want when we create a new conference is we tried to make sure that, first of all, there are no overlapping major events. So you don't have a lot of time that you have to choose. Do I go to the expo hall or do I go to a showcase? Nothing is overlapping. All the professional development, it does overlap, but it's in tracks. So it's easier to not feel conflicted about which session you should go to. But one of the things we were very clear about is putting in extra time between things. So the expo hall closes and you have about 90 minutes before any kind of showcases start. In the morning after professional development, there's about a 90-minute block for lunch before the expo hall opens. So we've expanded the free time in the schedule beyond what a lot of other conferences do. So I think that you have plenty of time for networking, and there's not as much conflict about where should I be at any given time.
Well, we do that in a couple of ways. Through events, through programs, and then the physical wayfinding space that we have at conference. So with our events and programs, we have multiple dedicated opportunities for networking, collaboration, and discovery. Our affinity groups are great opportunities to meet online in advance of the conference and in person on the first day, which allows people to meet and connect before the conference is even underway. Our Up Next session takes place also before the opening plenary on Friday. It offers curated pitches of ready-to-tour work and time to connect personally to discuss possible collaborations. Over the weekend, we have the Expo Hall, and inside the Expo Hall, we launched a Discovery Zone, which we piloted for the first time last year, and it was such a hit because it provided opportunities for people to do some speed dating and small group conversation, including both an opportunity for artists and presenters to meet and explore potential collaborations on works in progress, or to meet around in a roundtable setting to discuss socially engaged work. That Discovery Zone will continue to hold those spaces as well as have roundtable opportunities to connect around shared interests. And then finally, space. We have created multiple networking lounges that happen around the Hilton, as well as other special places like the bar and other places in the Expo Hall where you can make scheduled or unprogrammed connections with old friends, new acquaintances, etc. The Expo Hall with over 300 booths is a great place for networking and connecting with people. And we also have a couple of events like the opening reception and the awards breakfast that happens on Monday and our closing breakfast that happens on Tuesday. Those are all opportunities to kind of bump into people and meet them if you haven't met them over the course of the conference, or to reconnect with them because you met with them at the very beginning and you want to check about how their conference has been. So there's lots of opportunities to meet both planned and unplanned with your people and colleagues that you may never realize that you needed to meet.
When you are doing that kind of that wander, when you don't have any meeting schedule you're going through, is there something specific that you're looking for, or is there something that typically helps draw you into a booth?
For me, it's discovery. I'm looking for something I didn't know about before, or people that I didn't know about. The one thing I will caution people that are presenters that might do the wandering thing, which I also agree with, it's a great thing. But there's a couple, not a lot, not everybody, but there's a couple people that are like sharks, and they see you like looking at their booth and they pounce on you and you don't even get a chance to see what it is. And that's difficult. It's just part of wandering the floor. The main thing is not to lead anybody on. Like if you don't know what their roster is, hey, tell me about your roster. We're like, okay. And you can stop them, say, oh yeah, I don't book those types of shows, but it's good to meet you. And that way you're not wasting their time or yours. But if it is something that you might book, and you could say, oh, I present dance. This sounds really cool. I'd like to learn more, but here's where I am. I've got like 30 dance companies that I have on my list that I want to work with. And I only get to work with one every other year. So I'm going to start the discovery process with you. So you don't think I'm going to book you next season, but definitely, let's follow up and invite me to a show or whatever, so I can learn more. And so it's just about having that openness and that transparency. And, it saves you time too with the follow up, as well as, they know who to really do their homework with after.
One other important thing about scheduling meetings is whenever you schedule a meeting, take the time and do your homework about the agency you're meeting with, and know, like, I always have a list of 2 or 3 things that might be of interest to me on their roster before I sit down with them. As you talk with them, you can be upfront with them and say, hey, here's what I think I'm interested in. If there's anything along these lines that I haven't thought of, bring it up to me, but I don't know that we necessarily need to go through your entire roster. This is, and make your time with them more efficient for both of you.
Kevin, you asked what draws me into a booth. Really good visuals in a booth are super important to me. So really clean photos of the artist or the company. And honestly, like a little descriptor or a tagline of what this is. Is it contemporary jazz? Is it country? Is it something? So I know at a glance kind of what that what the tenor of that roster is. And frankly, because the expo hall is so busy, and sometimes when you are wandering, you're like, oh, that looks super interesting, but both agents in that booth are with people. If you have your brochures and your materials at the table at the front of the booth, then I can pick one of those up and I can peruse it later. Or I can say, oh, I'm going to grab this now, look at it, and then come and circle back. But sometimes the materials are so far back in the booth that it's super awkward to like try and snag something when they're in the middle of conversations. So I love it when agents have things right up front so I can easily peruse or grab something without interrupting, because I don't want to be rude. I don't want to interrupt, if they're having focused conversation with other people. But those are two things that I find to be really useful from a presenter perspective.
I just want to tag on to that, Katie, because knowing and understanding the ecosystem that we're in, and the reason why a lot of them put it behind them is because they want to make sure they know who's visiting their booth, who's taking their stuff. So if you're not going to talk to them and you do grab something, it is customary to make sure you leave a business card so they know who you were. So that way they know who to follow up with, or they at least know who's visiting their booth.
Sometimes too, when I go to a conference, I know that there's like a general genre that I don't have a strong feeling like I think I have covered in my season, or I feel like would help me balance. Like maybe it's dance, maybe it's magic. And I'll spend some time just perusing to see, looking for just things in that category, especially if I just like don't know which way I'm going. And that can kind of help you cover a little bit more ground rather than just like kind of looking at everything and seeing where your foot takes you. But like kind of having a general goal of like, what is it that I'm looking for on this sweep or on this day of my wander?
So some conferences have something called accessible hours too. So if you are intimidated by, being inundated by all the people doing the pitches constantly at you, there are those hours, they call them accessible hours, where most of the booths are not manned. They're not supposed to be anyway. And you can wander around and look at the stuff and take things. But again, if you do that, it is customary to leave, if you take something, to leave something so they know who was there. And I personally don't do that because I like to interact with the people, and especially if it's something that might be interesting for my season, I want to be able to hear the pitch. I want to hear what they have to say and get to know the agent or the artist and start developing that relationship if it's somebody new.
And I agree, Brian. I think it's so important to be able to actually speak to the people there, and because there's no chance of building a relationship or further understanding anything without that interaction.
What advice would you give to first-time exhibitors?
WAD has a reputation for being having a very appointment-driven exhibit hall. And that's just how our conference is. It's how our member presenters prefer to do business. And because WA's the first convening of the season, it happens at a time when agents and presenters have, largely not seen each other or been in the same room together since APAP in January. So the FaceTime is really important. And so the appointments happen because otherwise, those connections might not happen. And so if you're new to the conference and that's something you're not aware of, it can be easily to be discouraged if you yourself, don't have a lot of appointments and don't feel like you are entering the conference with those relationships. So what I tell first-time exhibitors is to try not to be discouraged. You will become known at our conference, but in those first couple of years, it might be challenging if your expectations are not tempered. So here's the advice I give, which is to measure your success by the number of conversations you have, not by the number of leads you generate. You're probably unlikely to get any bookings your first year at WA, so that's not even a fair metric. Your objective when you come to our conference for the first time as an exhibitor should be to meet people and make new friends. That's how you establish your network. I tell people, be friendly, be intentionally curious, ask questions, get to know people, and have fun. Just try to release yourself from the pressure of feeling like you have to sell.
Well, I would say if it's your first time exhibiting, obviously you're going to get a list of all the presenters that are coming to the event, and you're going to want to reach out to them. And I think it's very important before you reach out to do some research about the individual presenters to make sure that you're a good fit for those venues. I know that's a lot of work, but ultimately it's really important because it's a really a big waste of time for us and for them if somebody presents only giant Broadway touring shows and I have a 600-seat theater and I can't afford it. There's no point in setting up a meeting with me because it's not going to be a fit. So I think it's really important to try to do as much research as possible. And then I think just remember, we are bombarded with dozens and dozens and dozens of people wanting our attention. So be persistent, but don't be annoying.
Well, the first is to attend the Road to Conference sessions I mentioned. We have 3 that are of particular interest to exhibitors. One is Wednesday, July 10th, which is just an overview of all the key dates and prices and strategies that you should take advantage of, both for people that are veterans, because we'll have some new information, or first timers. And then we have a special session on September 25th for exhibitors. And if you're also an exhibitor who plans showcases, we have a special installment around showcasing on October 9th. So definitely do that. The second thing I would say is to prepare and plan. Do your research. Make judicious use of the attendee list to do research first, and reach out in advance to presenters who are clearly appropriate for what you offer. So from my perspective as a former presenter, what that means is that you're going to go into the websites of places that you think are reasonable and check out people that and their programming to make sure that you're not pitching programs on your roster that are clearly not in line with the ways that they program. So just do that research. It's really helpful. And presenters appreciate that you've done something to learn a little bit more about what they do, and who they present for. Do not spam, do not spray and pray, by sending an email out to all the people on the attendee list about how they should come to your showcase. That's just not a good thing. Although I'm sure your showcase is amazing, but you want to do it in a targeted way. You want to schedule meetings in advance and as soon as possible. Typically, people start to reach out end of October, beginning of November, to presenters who just about taking meetings. So that's just some timing tips. Take advantage of the networking opportunities that we've mentioned in these Road to Conference sessions and affinity groups. And then just remember that this is a long game. This is a field built on relationships. So you need to put in the effort to build relationships. And these connections are not solely transactional because they are for the long term. And this is just the start. But it's worth it for you to actually start out and learn more about your potential partners and about what they do. And I suspect that will yield a lot of really good relationships for you and your artists, both in the future and in the immediate.
This is work. And so with that, it ends up being some long days. I mean, you end up waking up early to get to, expo hours or professional development. You're staying out late to showcase and network with, friends and colleagues. So all of that in mind, what do any of you have some advice about, what to wear or what to pack? And I always tell people, like, my go-to one that I always pull out is I always pack a Tide stick because, I eat like a child apparently and always drop something on myself. So I have that to make sure that I'm not walking around with, barbecue sauce or mustard on my shirt for the rest of the day. So does anybody have any suggestions like that?
I have a little bit of a list to share with everybody. I typically overpack. I try and be prepared for every possible situation. So I always bring a travel umbrella. Always pack a lot of snacks because you never know when you're going to be running from thing to thing. So always have a snack in your bag. Water bottle. You need weather appropriate clothes. If you are going someplace in the summer, pack appropriately. If you're going someplace in the winter, pack appropriately. But always have a sweater. Always have a sweater because conferences are cold. You get in those conference like hotel ballrooms and they are freezing cold. So always have a sweater.
I mean, I didn't even bring an overcoat, like a winter coat to APAP this past year. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Depends on how much you're planning on leaving the conference hotel in terms of a coat situation. If you're like, I'm just going to be in the hotel the whole time and I'm never going to leave, don't really need a coat. If you're going to go out and do showcases and stuff, you need a coat.
I always typically dress a little bit nicer at the beginning of the conference for first impressions. And then my shoes get a little bit more casual throughout the conference and comfortable, because after that many days on your feet, I'm not saying that those shoes don't look great, but I really plan out what shoes I'm going to wear each day because my feet are going to hurt progressively more throughout.
Comfy shoes, like Josh mentioned. I suggest a bottle of Travel Febreze because especially if you're going to wear a shirt 2 days in a row, or you spill something, or you just need to like make your room smell better, like Travel Febreze is great. You need to bring a lint roller, Band-Aids, because you will get calluses and blisters on your feet, or you might cut yourself or whatever. Nail file and nail clippers, also super important for a whole host of situations. I've gotten really creative with uses of nail clippers to like open packages and like other sorts of things. And I am sure that there are other things I'm forgetting, but that's
jumper cables.
Only if you're driving. If you're not flying, you don't need jumper cables, Brian. Let's be real. So that's at least my initial list of like little ticky-tacky things you need to put in your bag.
Yeah.
Tic Tacs.
Breath mints.
Oh yeah, gum, breath mints, super important because you will go to dinner and then go to showcases and you're talking to people, and that's not a great situation. So
I'm going to be honest, Katie. I agree with you on every aspect of everything you've ever said. But the one thing that I think I do slightly differently is things like breath mints or like sometimes snacks. Not always. I wait until I get there because I don't like being loaded down in the packing situation.
That's true.
So it's like if there's something that isn't a huge cost when I get there, like I like to plan a little time to settle in and just not be super weighed down in my travel.
That's a
but
good
I will
call.
say, I think one of the things that's helped me get to those early morning meetings is before I leave, I take a lot of care in making sure I know what outfit is an outfit, like what things go together. I don't just like pack like a bunch of random stuff and like hope for the best, but I'll make sure that like I've got like things that I know I'm comfortable in and like specific pieces and maybe like one extra one. And that kind of helps me cut down on just overpacking.
I'm like all of you, so I'm not going to get into all the things that I pack because it's very similar, but it has over the years become more on the side of comfort. And then like Danielle said, like I'll always go in early because I want to go out and pick up a case of water to bring to my room. I want to have snacks, and I like to not live out of the suitcase. I find it very helpful because I'm on the go constantly and I'm getting run down, that I like to feel like I'm coming home when I actually get to the hotel room. Like I put things in drawers. I actually iron all my clothes and hang them up, and you know, I kind of just make it settled in before I even like get out and start meeting people.
My best piece of advice for you is to find a mom friend at the conference, because if you forgot it, they have it in their bag.
So Kevin, I think you're doing a great job hosting this, but I gotta get some more games. If you don't mind, I'm gonna just interject, just a little cute Never Have I Ever conference edition. All right, my friends, get ready. I'm going to pretend to be Ellen. I've got a series of questions here that start out with Never Have I Ever. And you, based on the magic of podcasting, are going to hold up a sign that either says I have or I have not to answer the question. And I'm going to call on some people. So here we go. Never have I ever booked a show that was new to me after seeing a showcase at conference. Oh, okay. We all said I have. Brian, what did you book after seeing it at conference?
Rhythmic Circus.
Oh,
Feet Don't Fail Me Now. Oh my God. It was so moving that I
It's a
booked
great
it
showcase. I never booked it though.
Kevin, what did you book after seeing it at conference?
I booked the AJ Croce show, Croce Plays Croce.
Josh, what about you? What did you book because you saw a showcase?
Voice Play is who I booked off of a showcase.
Yeah, once I stumbled into a showcase of a band called Big Bang Boom, and they're a kids rock band, and was delighted. And at the end, they said, "See us at booth, yeah, something." And I just immediately walked out of there, was like, sweet, the expo hall is still going on. Walked up to that booth, and I was like, when can I get Big Bang Boom? Number 2, never have I ever missed or messed up my travel or hotel situation at a conference. Ooh, okay. Three out of 5 of us have messed up our travel or hotel situation.
I'm not surprised that Katie has not messed up her travel or hotel situation.
Kevin, what did you accidentally do?
Oh, no, I take that back. I mean, I'm just thinking that like my travel got fucked up.
Okay, so 2 out of the 5 of us have messed up our travel or hotel situation. Josh, what did you do?
I booked myself 2 nights short of hotel.
Oh, yikes.
At one conference. It was at a South Arts. And as I was checking in, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're out on this date." I was like, "No. Oh no." But we ended up figuring it out. But yeah, I had totally booked 2 days short of hotel.
I did the opposite of that once. I had it in my head that I was going to New York on Thursday when in fact my hotel was ready on Friday. And I figured all of this out at the train station and just was like, meh, let's just see what happens. And like just switched my ticket to Thursday and like on the train was like texting people that I thought were already there. And like just, found a cute little place to stay for that one extra
That would
night.
give me such anxiety on the way there. What about you, Katie? Like I would
I would definitely be having a heart attack too. However, like my brother and sister-in-law live in northern New Jersey, so I could always just go stay with them if we were going to APAP and something got screwed up. You're all welcome to stay with me. No, I'm just kidding.
If you don't have a place to stay for APAP.
Never have I ever forgotten an essential like underwear, a Tide pen, a charger, or your phone. Katie, is it something other than the toothbrush?
No, just the toothbrush situation.
All right. I think everybody else said that they had forgotten an essential. I'm pretty sure that like I've forgotten a lot of things, but not essentials. Brian, what did you forget?
I'm just like Katie. I forgot a toothbrush. I forgot deodorant once, but I mean, those were easy things to just run out and get.
Josh, what did you forget?
One thing that I found is that a lot of hotels have like a plethora of phone chargers that have been left in their hotel. And so it's typically pretty easy to snag one if you forgot.
Honestly, forgetting your phone charger would like send me into like so much anxiety.
You can easily get one. Just go to a CVS.
Or just go to the desk and ask, "Hey, do you guys have any extra phone chargers?"
Oh, another thing that you should pack is like you can get those phone charger like power packs, like the battery that you pre-charge and have that in your bag so that if you can't get to a wall outlet or a charging station, you can always like plug in your phone in your bag and you can charge it on the go.
All right, this is the last one.
Aww.
Never have I ever been hit by a car while riding a scooter at a conference. So funny thing, all of us held up I have not, except for Josh Benson.
Yep.
Sir, tell us what happened.
So I was riding a scooter and I got hit by a car while I was at a conference.
Toledo.
At the OAPN conference.
Can you reassure the listeners that you were fine?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was fine, kind of.
He was not the only one that got hurt on a scooter.
I was not.
That conference.
But so I was at the OAPN conference last year. The 2 venues for the conference were a few blocks apart, and there were rentable scooters. So I scooted everywhere at that conference. And a lot of people can attest to that because, wearing a suit jacket and going down the road, waving at everybody else that isn't on a scooter. And so as I was headed to an event, I turned and went down this road and a car came behind me and their mirror clipped me and tossed me off into the landscaping and the sidewalk. And so I brushed myself off, hopped right back on that scooter and went on to the event that I was supposed to be at.
Do you have a favorite conference memory?
There are a couple that stand out, but I'll give you 2018 Las Vegas. I had been on staff 4 years, and so it was the 3rd conference that I had planned. And we broke the mold that year with our showcasing program. WA partnered with the Smith Center, Myron Martin, Paul Beard, and their fabulous team to create and produce a whole afternoon and evening of showcases at the Smith Center. We bussed everyone from the Bellagio in the late afternoon. And then at the Smith Center, there was an independent showcase program, then dinner, then the juried showcase program, then more independent showcasing. There were like multiple spaces activated concurrently. It was a massive undertaking for the many of us who worked on it to make it happen. And huge credit, I have to say, to Steve Baker, our production manager that year, who played a massive role. But anyway, it was a risk. We hadn't done anything like that before. And I have a distinct memory of standing in the beautiful lobby of Reynolds Hall with Tim Wilson and WAD's former executive director And, our conference delegates had started to disperse and like go explore and watch their showcases. And Tim and I looked at each other and we were just like, it's working. Oh my God, it's working. It's working. And we both sort of did this like very awkward up and down sort of excited jump, a couple of like a couple of nerds. And it was just a nice shared memory because it was just such a heavy lift for everybody.
I think one of my most vivid conference memories was one of the very first conferences I went to way back in the early 2000s was a PAE, the Performing Arts Exchange, which was produced by South Arts. And I started going to that because we lost the New England conference after 9/11. And there was a conference in Baltimore, probably 2005-ish. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But I just remember vividly, that was the first time that I met some of the current agents that have become my good friends and I've been friends with for 20 years. Sadly, Liz Silverstein was one of them. She passed away a number of years ago, but Liz and I were very, very close friends as well as colleagues. But Jerry Ross from Harmony Artists, Tony Klein, who recently retired but with ECE, Larry Cosson from Cosson Talent. That was the conference where I met all of those people for the first time and became friends with them. And so I remember that.
My very first APAP as director of programs. And it was 2018. And it was so great to be on stage, but also welcomed in such a loving way by my peers and colleagues who I've worked with for so many years, and to be able to see them and to know that I was serving them in the field in a really unique way that was a perfect career moment that just brought together all the things that I care about, the people, the field, the work, and to feel like I was doing something that mattered.
So conferences have a lot of things that to look for and things to do, but there are sort of some main highlights. So I am going to say an area and say your name, and then as quickly as possible, tell me a little bit about it and maybe a little piece of advice that you have.
That almost sounds like a lightning round, Kevin.
Definitely completely different. This is an educational round.
Oh, someone else likes to play games around here.
Okay. Expo Hall floor, Brian.
So there's a lot of rules you should know, like don't talk to people that are talking to someone else. Just assume they're doing business. There's a bunch of them. So just make sure you look that up. There's etiquette. Napama has a great thing on their website that you can look at the general rules of conferencing, especially at the Expo Hall. And I really highly recommend it because when you don't follow those rules, it really causes all kinds of problems.
Excellent. Professional development, Katie.
Most of the time, it's very worth attending professional development sessions. If you are going to a conference for the first time, I do highly recommend going to the new colleague session because you will learn a lot and you will meet a lot of new people. I think be thoughtful about what PD sessions you're going to take on. Make sure that they're directly related to either what you are doing in your day-to-day job or are going to help you learn something new. And always take notes and always try and grab business cards of the presenter so you can follow up afterwards.
Excellent. Showcases, Danielle.
Yeah, if you are thinking about going to a showcase, go to it. Along with what Katie said, take notes and review them whenever you get back, because those things happen. They're so quick. They happen so fast that you want to be able to have just your initial takeaway of what that experience was or what you saw other people reacting to. Because there might be something that's not your thing, but if the rest of the group is having a great time and they look like your audience, that tells you a lot. In a lot of cities, the showcases are not in the conference hotel and you have to travel. So just be wise about prioritizing and making sure you can get to and from a showcase to get to the next one.
Excellent. Networking events, Josh.
The biggest thing is, one, go to the networking events. You need to meet other people. You need to expand your circle and you need to build further relationships. I am one of the biggest advocates for networking for those reasons because the relationship building within this industry is so incredibly important. While you're at those networking events, just be open to meeting new people. Everybody there is in the same field in general that you are. You have common ground with everyone. Don't be afraid to start up a conversation or join a conversation. I mean, don't be rude and just interrupt people, but be there and be open to meeting new people and expanding your circle.
Excellent. So after a conference, it's sometimes really nice to follow up with folks. Brian, do you have any tips and tricks for that?
You're going to get a lot of follow-up email after you get back from the conference already. They're going to approach you, but make sure that you are proactive. It always helps to respond quickly to people and be upfront. And like they always say, no is the second best answer. So if it's something you're not going to book, they're in crunch mode trying to get as many shows as they can have figured out too. So it saves everybody if you don't lead people on. Just make sure that you're upfront, you're transparent. And if you do want to continue the conversation, convey that. Make sure you are proactive and say, hey, I really love talking to you about this or seeing the showcase and at the conference, and I'm very interested in pursuing this. And that way they'll prioritize you towards the top to make sure they can get that wrapped up. There's a lot more to that, but those are the main things that I'd like to just make sure that you are proactive as much as they are.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, friends. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of conferences that we have to choose from, and they range from your statewide conferences, your regional conferences, to national conferences. And obviously, there are some that are international as well. There are different benefits to these. Sometimes, the nice thing about a statewide conference is that it is, kind of hyper regional, like hyper focused. Probably more colleagues that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis. Your regional one is, just as it says, it's a little bit regional, a little bit wider. And then your national is going to be sort of everybody. Your statewide conferences are typically organized by your state consortiums or sometimes your state agencies. Like here in the state of Illinois, the Illinois Arts Council Agency and Arts Alliance Illinois do an arts conference every other year. But there are also, there are regional conferences like WA or Arts Northwest or South Arts or the upcoming Midwest Arts Expo. And on a national front, we have things like APAP, IEBA, Polestar, TYA USA, which tends to be a bit more PD focused, but it does have some showcases there as well. Outside of that, as we mentioned, there are tons of options for professional development only conferences or things in other areas that you want to focus on. And, you can look at all sorts of national agencies that have these things, like, Americans for the Arts is a good example. And, biggest thing we would say is talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends and see what they are going to, because they will be able to tell you their experiences at conferences or their experiences and, why they choose to go to the ones that they go to. So lots of information there. Obviously, we've talked about a lot in this episode and we gave you a lot of links, and obviously we expected you to write them down. But if you did not write them down, we have all of that centrally located in a document that you can find the link into our show notes on our website and in our link tree. So friends, I appreciate you tuning into this episode, and hopefully we will see you out during conference season. And if you want to join us and see us at MAX, we are in booth 251.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh, wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Hey, Katie.
Hey, Brian.
I hear you, Kevin, and Josh are going to the Midwest Arts Expo. No.
We are going to be there.
Did I say it wrong? Oh,
No, you didn't.
Why did I not learn from all of you? Don't look at Danielle.
I really thought that it wasn't right. I really thought that was wrong. I was so certain that was wrong, and it's not.
I'm questioning myself, and then she says no, so I was like, oh, it must be wrong.
I really thought you were.
Podcasting rule number 1, never look at Danielle.
Rule number 2, safety is not guaranteed.